Evan didn't even have the courage to say it to my face. He sat 2 doors down from me, in a room filled with posters I had framed, lit by a lamp I bought, with walls that still bore the soft dents from the time I moved his furniture alone while he was out with friends. The bed he lounged on, mine. The laptop glowing in his lap, mine. The router blinking in the hall, streaming his bitterness through my bandwidth, also mine. And yet, there he was, typing it out like it cost him nothing. "You're so controlling. I hate you. Leave me alone and forget my number." No punctuation. No hesitation. Not even the decency of a period. It wasn't shouted during a fight, not thrown in a moment of passion. It was typed with quiet deliberation, the way someone cancels a subscription they were never invested in. Quick, clean, detached, like I was a service whose trial had expired. I was sitting on the couch when it came through. The same couch I assembled on a Saturday while Evan stayed out with friends and Laura, supervised from the kitchen, wine in hand, giving suggestions but never lifting a finger. It had taken me 5 hours to get the legs right. I remember sweating through my shirt, trying to make sure the seams matched. I cared about things like that, alignment, stability. I stared at the screen, just stared. From behind me, I heard Laura shift a pan. The quiet sizzle of oil. The glass of wine on the counter clicked as she moved it. I waited for her to say something, anything, even a simple "that was harsh." Instead, she said, "Can you set the table?" I looked up. She had seen it. The message. It was still glowing on my phone. She didn't ask what he meant. She didn't ask if I was okay. She didn't even blink. Just handed me a stack of plates like nothing had been burned. The weight of those words settled in my chest. "You're so controlling. I hate you. Forget my number." As if he was doing me a favor, unburdening me from the responsibility I had begged to carry for years. I thought about the rides I gave him before he had his license. Early mornings when I was already drained from working overtime, and he'd sit next to me in silence, headphones in, barely acknowledging my presence. I thought about the nights I stayed up helping him redo math assignments, writing outlines for English essays he couldn't be bothered to finish. The passwords I reset for his school portal. The appointments I booked. The clothes I paid for that he never thanked me for. The phone in his hand right now, the one he was using to erase me. I paid the bill on that just 2 days ago. And in all of that, not once had he said thank you. Not once had he called me Dad. Not even accidentally. I wanted to tell myself it was just a phase. That teenagers lash out. That he was stressed or misunderstood or copying things he saw online. I wanted to excuse it the way Laura always did. He doesn't mean it. He's just figuring things out. Don't take it personally. But I did take it personally. Because I had been reduced to a line item in a family budget. A ghost who paid bills and kept his mouth shut. And when I saw that message, I realized something so simple it felt like a revelation. This wasn't about him being young. It was about me being invisible. I didn't respond with anger. I didn't walk down the hallway and demand respect. I didn't knock on his door and force a confrontation like I might have years ago, when I still believed effort would win him over. I typed one line, one sentence, the cleanest one I've ever written. "Then you don't have to come back." Not a threat, not a punishment, just an acknowledgement. A reply that matched the energy he gave me, cold, brief, final. That was the moment it crystallized. Every time Laura told me, "He's just being a teenager," she was wrong. He wasn't lashing out randomly. He wasn't testing boundaries. He had learned exactly what this household permitted. He had learned that Laura wouldn't challenge him, that I would always bend, and that there were no consequences to cruelty, especially not if it was directed at me. Because the truth is, I hadn't been a stepfather in that house for years. I had been a placeholder, a bank account with a name, a man who lived in the spaces between real conversations. I don't know when it started. That erosion. That quiet retreat from inclusion. Maybe it was subtle, small exclusions that added up over time. Family group texts where I was left out. School events where I found out only after the fact. Decisions about Evan's future made in whispers between Laura and her ex. As if I were just the ride, just the roof. And every time I pointed it out, I was told I was being sensitive, that I was overthinking it, that Evan just needed time. How much time does a boy need to see the man who feeds him? I used to think effort would earn love, that if I just kept showing up, eventually they'd let me all the way in. But I was never in. Not really. I paid for the phones. I paid for the groceries. I paid for the school apps, the rideshare credits, the meal subscriptions, the gas, the heat, the goddamn Netflix they all watched while I sat alone in the garage fixing a shelf no one had asked me to build. And still, somehow, I was too controlling. Because I had asked Evan not to curse at his mother. Because I had told him he couldn't have friends over when we weren't home. Because I had said no once to paying $300 for a hoodie. And that was enough to become the enemy. He didn't say it in person. He waited until he was locked away, behind a door I had installed, in a room lit by the bulb I changed last week, and texted it. I reread the message, not because I didn't understand it, but because I couldn't believe how unsurprised I felt. That's the saddest part. It didn't even shock me. I didn't raise my voice, didn't throw the phone, didn't walk down that hall and confront him. Because something inside me, something quiet and fundamental, had already snapped months ago, maybe years. And now, with that sentence, he had just given me permission to stop pretending. I remember setting my phone down, standing up. Laura was still in the kitchen, stirring something. She didn't look at me, didn't ask what I was doing. I walked to the hall closet, grabbed the documents I kept in the fireproof box, account passwords, insurance cards, school billing statements. I didn't make a scene. I just started thinking, calculating, measuring. For the first time in years, I wasn't reacting, I was assessing. If he hated me, so be it. But I would no longer pay to be hated. And if Laura refused to see the damage, then she could live with the crater. The plate clinked as she set it on the table. "Dinner's almost ready," she said, as if we were still a family, as if nothing had shifted, as if her son hadn't just cut the last thread between us. I looked at her, really looked, and saw that she knew. She had read the message, watched me read it, said nothing. That was her decision, and I was about to make mine. It didn't take long. 30 minutes, maybe less. I sat in the office, the room everyone called Michael's space, when they wanted to remind me where I belonged. My space, like a dog has a crate, like a guest has a room. The same space I paid the mortgage for. The same door Evan had slammed shut a dozen times after arguments. The same desk where I'd quietly moved funds, filled out FAFSA forms, researched transportation options, tracked tuition fees, and renewed insurance plans no one ever asked me to keep alive. I opened my laptop, entered my credentials, clicked through the tabs, and I stopped being part of the system. Not in rage, not in spite, but in precision. First, I shut down the joint education account, the one we set up for emergencies, the one Laura only touched when Evan needed something. I removed myself as co-owner and let the balance fall into her lap. $12. 52 and a trail of overdrafts waiting for my cover. Then came the school portal. I logged into the parent dashboard, the one Evan never knew I had access to, and revoked my financial authorization. Without that, the next tuition installment would be denied. Payment was due in 5 days. I closed out the transportation apps. Lyft Family, Uber for Teens, bus pass renewals linked to my credit card. All disabled. Not suspended, removed. Spotify Family, canceled. Adobe license for his digital art class, gone. Amazon Prime, revoked. iCloud Family Storage, the one that kept all his data, his photos, his backups, deleted his profile, just like he wanted me to do with his number. I opened the bank's mobile app. The prepaid card I'd been refilling for gas, groceries, and emergencies. $180 left on it. I transferred it back to my account, then froze the card. Not out of revenge, out of alignment. He wanted nothing to do with me, so I gave him exactly that. This wasn't retaliation. This was accounting. Every connection between us had a cost. I simply stopped paying it. I didn't change passwords to be cruel. I didn't write dramatic goodbye letters. I just erased my presence from the places I was told I didn't belong. I looked over the paperwork one last time. removed myself as the backup contact for his school, unlinked my email from the shared calendars, disabled the security system code labeled Evan, the one he used to come and go without ever saying where he'd been. By the time the house called for dinner, I had severed 16 digital threads and rerouted 7 financial systems. None of them required permission. All of them had been mine. I emerged from the office calm. Not empty, clear. There's a difference. The table was set. Laura had plated everything like it was just another evening. Chicken, rice, steamed vegetables, the meal you make when you're pretending you're okay. She smiled at me in that brittle way people do when they hope you won't speak the truth out loud. Evan didn't come down. Not a word about the message. Not a word about my reply. We sat at the table like ghosts eating dinner in a burned-down house. And then the first consequence arrived. It was less than 30 minutes after I closed the last tab. My phone rang. I didn't recognize the number at first. Local area code. Probably spam, I thought. But something told me to pick it up. Hello. Silence for a beat. Then Evan's voice. Sharp, brittle. Not angry but unsteady. Something's wrong with my card. I said nothing. It's not working. I tried to get an Uber to go to Noah's and it said payment failed. Still, I didn't speak. More silence. Then the shift, that subtle twist from confusion to blame. Did you do something? What the hell, Michael? I let the silence hold. Let him hear what it feels like when the person you erased no longer fills in the gaps. I've got a problem, he said, more urgent now. I can't get a ride. I'm stuck. And I gave him the only response that fit. I thought I wasn't supposed to be part of your life. He went quiet. Not long, maybe 2 seconds, but in those 2 seconds I heard the ground shift. I didn't mean it like that. I almost laughed. The sentence every coward uses when consequences arrive. But I didn't laugh. I just said, then I guess you've learned what words mean when they're not just sent, but received. Then I hung up. No yelling. No threats. Just silence. He called again 5 minutes later. I didn't answer. He sent a text. This is seriously messed up. You can't just leave me stranded. And I said nothing, because he had already done the leaving. I was just following through. By 9 p.m., Laura's phone was buzzing. I watched her eyes scan the screen as the texts came in. One after another. From Evan. Her face didn't change much. Just that slight tightening around the jaw. That look women get when they realize they can't mediate anymore. That they're not married to a man who can be guilt into service. She looked at me once. I met her eyes, said nothing. Eventually she walked out of the room to call him. I heard her voice in the hallway, muffled and clipped. I didn't listen to the words. I just sat there, remembering every time she'd said, "Don't take it personally." I remember when Evan first moved in. He was 12. Thin as a rail, sullen, angry, but clever. There was hope in him once. I spent hours trying to connect. Taught him how to mow the lawn, change a tire. He hated all of it. Called it boring. Still, I tried. I paid for his therapy when he said he couldn't sleep. Sat through sessions with the school counselor when he was suspended for fighting. Took off work for parent-teacher meetings. Sat in waiting rooms while Laura texted his father, the ghost who hadn't shown up in 2 Christmases. The same father he idolized because he bought him a drone once and took him to a hockey game. Me? I was the one who showed up every day. Paid every bill. Remembered every appointment. And yet, all it took was one sentence to erase me. One message from a boy in a room I furnished using tools I paid for, telling me to forget him. And now that the machine wasn't running, now that the wallet closed and the card didn't show and the card didn't swipe, now I was needed. Funny how quickly hate turns into dependency when the safety net vanishes. At 10 p.m., Laura came back into the room. She looked tired. Not from the day. From the realization. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Poured herself another glass of wine. I didn't speak, because she had made her decision too. Years ago. Every time she let Evan interrupt me. Every time she let him curse under his breath without correction. Every time she changed the subject when I brought up respect. Every time she said, "He's just a kid." No, He wasn't just a kid. He was a mirror. He reflected what she allowed. And now she was staring into that mirror and seeing the cracks. At midnight, I logged back into the accounts. Not to undo anything, just to confirm. Balance. Secure. Transactions. Halted. Authorizations. Revoked. And for the first time in years, I felt peace. Not joy. Not revenge. Just stillness. Like a man who finally set down a weight that was never his to carry. They wanted me to be invisible. Then they would learn what it means when the man holding the roof walks away. The next morning, the world did what it always does after a rupture. Kept turning. The coffee brewed on schedule. The sun poured through the blinds I had installed last spring. The trash truck rattled past the house at 6:47 a.m., just like every Thursday. On the surface, nothing had changed. But underneath, everything was different. I could feel it in the way Laura moved through the kitchen. Lighter on her feet, as if careful not to disturb something she couldn't name. She didn't look me in the eye. She poured 2 mugs of coffee, but only one made it across the room. Mine stayed cooling by the stove. That too was a message. I sat at the dining table and checked my phone. Nothing from Evan. Not a word. Not even a half-hearted excuse. But I knew what was coming. That's the thing about systems. Once you pull the wrong thread, everything unravels. By 11 a.m., the first email arrived. The subject line was simple. Action required. Tuition payment failure. I didn't even need to open it. I had written that failure myself. I was the ghost in the machine, gone, but still haunting the edges. Then came the texts. Not from Evan. From Laura. Why isn't the payment going through? Did something happen with the school account? I'm getting emails. Can we talk? Each one stacked like falling bricks. And still, no mention of Evan's message. No apology. No admission. Just confusion, as if the system had broken by accident. As if the man funding it hadn't already been told to disappear. I didn't reply. I let it simmer. By late afternoon, the dam cracked. Laura came into the room holding her phone like it had personally insulted her. Her voice was tight. Not angry yet, just brittle. Michael, did you change something with the tuition portal? I looked up from the chair. I removed myself. Her forehead creased. What does that mean? It means I'm no longer the one paying. She stared at me, blinking like she hadn't heard me correctly. But it's due this week. If it doesn't go through, he'll lose his spot. I nodded. That's what due means. She opened her mouth, then closed it. A flash of something crossed her face. Not guilt, not sadness. Annoyance. Like I was making things harder than they had to be. She tried again. He didn't mean what he said. He's a teenager. He was angry. No, I said calmly. He was honest. The silence stretched between us. Not uncomfortable, just cold. You're punishing him, she said finally. For a moment, I stood then, slowly, walked to the kitchen, poured myself water, let her words settle. I'm not punishing him, I said. I'm taking him seriously. She didn't follow. Not at first. She just stood there, holding her phone like she still believed the screen would tell her what to say. And then came the real fracture. That evening, Evan tried to use the grocery card. I'd seen the charge attempt. The notification came to my phone, even though the card was frozen. Denied. $32. 47, snacks and soda. A familiar store. The one near his friend's house. He never planned to be home for dinner. 5 minutes later, my phone rang. I didn't answer. He called Laura next. She answered in the kitchen, voice hushed. Hand over the receiver like that would keep me from hearing. I caught enough. He what? Well, I don't know, ask him? No, Evan, I can't just. She looked at me then, eyes pleading. Not with love. With expectation. Michael, she said. He's at the store. I said nothing. He can't pay. I kept my voice flat. Then he'll leave empty-handed. She looked stricken. You're being cold. No, I said. I'm being consistent. She turned away and I saw it clearly, the mask slipping. Not fear, not sadness. Resentment. Not because I was cruel, but because I had stopped absorbing the cost. We ate dinner in silence. No texts from Evan. No calls. Just the quiet, the clink of a fork, the hollow scrape of dishes being cleared from a table that had never really belonged to me. The next day, the real consequences arrived. School administrator called, not me, but Laura. I heard the voicemail. Billing issue. Student account suspended. Please resolve within 48 hours or enrollment may be withdrawn. Then came the email from the insurance company. The family plan I had set up covering Laura and Evan had lapsed. The autopay tied to my account had been disabled. Not an oversight, a decision. Laura forwarded it to me. This needs fixing. No, can you? No, please. I didn't reply. That evening, she exploded. You're letting him suffer. You're ruining his life over a goddamn message. I didn't shout. I just stood there, arms crossed, listening to years of silence finally trying to speak. He's a boy, Michael. He made a mistake. You're a grown man. What are you doing? I stepped closer, my voice low. For years, I've fed a system that erased me. I showed up and was told I didn't belong. I paid and was told I had no say. I gave everything and was thanked with contempt. She looked like she wanted to deny it, but she didn't, because she knew. I kept going. You think I'm doing this out of spite? No. I'm doing this because I believed in something that never believed in me. And now I've stopped funding the lie. She sank into a chair. Not defeated, just cornered. I don't know what you expect us to do, she whispered. I expect nothing, I said. That's the difference. The weekend passed in a fog. Grocery deliveries didn't arrive. Evan's medical appointment was declined. The insurance had lapsed. The Netflix stopped working. Spotify too. Laura spent most of the weekend on her phone. I knew what she was doing, trying to bridge the gaps. Calling her ex. Maybe calling her parents. Reaching into pockets that had never reached for Evan before. The quiet in the house was different now. Not just tension, absence. My absence. And for the first time, they felt it. By Monday, I had documented everything. Every change. Every cancellation. Not for revenge. For clarity. I printed the statements. Set them in a folder. Left it on the kitchen table. When Laura saw it, her mouth tightened. She didn't open it. She didn't need to. She already knew what was inside. Evidence. Not of cruelty. Of decision. That night, she tried again. Her voice softer. Measured. Maybe just until the end of the semester? I shook my head. No. Her eyes shimmered. But I didn't move. Michael, she said. He's still a child. No, I said. He's not. A child doesn't send messages like that. A child doesn't declare war from behind a closed door. I leaned forward. A child can be taught. Evan made it clear he's beyond that. So let him live in the world he chose. She didn't cry. That would have made it easier. She just looked at me like she had never seen me before. And maybe she hadn't. Because this version of me, silent, still, final, was new to her. But it wasn't new to me. It was the man I had always been. I had just hidden him under effort, under sacrifice, under the lie that love would someday be returned. That night I packed a small bag, just enough for a few days. I didn't make an announcement, didn't slam doors, just left the keys on the hook and stepped out into the night. When the door closed behind me, it was quiet, too quiet, because now absence wasn't just an idea. It was real. I didn't leave a note. I didn't take much. Just a suitcase, a duffel, and the parts of myself that still belonged to me. The apartment was already waiting. 1 bedroom, upper floor, no noise from above. Clean walls, empty closets. A place with no photos, no mess, no expectations. A place where I didn't have to ask permission to breathe. The first night, I slept without interruption. No footsteps pacing the hall, no doors slamming, no raised voices bleeding through the drywall. Just silence. I woke up before the sun, made coffee without rushing, opened the blinds and stood in the light, barefoot on the floor, as the city came alive beneath me. It wasn't happiness. It wasn't peace. It was stillness. And that was enough. Back at the house, the unraveling had **n. I didn't have to see it to know. I knew the patterns, the dependencies. I had built that machine, I knew what it needed to run. And I had walked out with all the pieces. The first message came from Laura, 2 days after I left. Short, tense. "We need to talk." I didn't reply. She sent another later that night. "I don't understand how you can just walk away." But she did understand. That's what scared her. She just didn't think I would. For years, I had been reliable, predictable. The man who fixed things, covered the bills, absorbed the disrespect because he thought patience was virtue. But patience isn't virtue when it becomes permission. And I had given them permission to erase me. Not anymore. By the end of the week, the third message arrived. This time from Evan. "I'm not asking you to fix everything. I just need help right now." He had learned to soften his tone, to bury the edge under desperation. I stared at the message for a long time. There was no apology, no acknowledgement, just need. The same voice that told me to forget him was now asking to be remembered. I left it unread, because I knew what he was learning. When you push someone away long enough, sometimes they stay gone. The school called Laura. I knew, because I received a CC'd email. My address had been removed, but the message still found its way through a secondary alias I'd forgotten to delete. Enrollment withdrawn due to unresolved financial obligations. The deadline had passed. There was no deferment, no grace period. Evan was out. And suddenly, the cost of contempt was no longer theoretical. It was real. It had a name. It had paperwork. The messages changed after that. Laura wrote more often. "He's devastated. He's lost. This could ruin his future." Each one layered with urgency, but never ownership. Never once did she say, "We let this happen," because it was easier to call it abandonment than consequence. It was easier to blame me than to look in the mirror. She called once. I let it ring, then blocked the number. That weekend, I went for a walk through the old neighborhood. I didn't mean to. My body just led me there. Muscle memory is cruel that way. I passed the house slowly. The lights were on. Blinds half closed. Evan's car parked outside, dusty and used. The lawn hadn't been mowed. That had been my job. A package sat on the porch, the kind that would have been stolen if left another hour. But I didn't walk up, didn't knock, didn't help. I stood across the street, watching the stillness. Watching the emptiness they said they wanted. It was theirs now. Inside the house, they were learning how things work when the quiet man at the edge stops carrying everyone's weight. Maybe Evan was in his room, scrolling through old texts, trying to undo his words with time. Maybe Laura was in the kitchen, staring at a bill she couldn't pay. Maybe they were together, pretending they hadn't built this with their own hands. I don't know. I didn't stay long. I walked back to my car, drove to the apartment, and sat alone in a chair that didn't rock when someone stormed past it. That night, I cooked a quiet dinner. And when I sat down, there was no tension. No silence hiding knives. No place setting left cold for someone who didn't want me. There was only space. Real space. In the weeks that followed, I rebuilt. Not quickly. Not with joy. But with clarity. I changed my accounts. Updated my will. Cleaned out old folders. Removed names from emergency contacts. Cut the final cords. I told the apartment leasing office that no one else would ever be on file. No roommates. No guests. Just me. Because I had finally learned something that took too long to understand. You don't build a home by being useful. You build it by being wanted. And I had never been wanted. Only needed. Need ends when the faucet turns off. Love, real love, doesn't. And what I had wasn't love. It was dependency, dressed up as family. Evan didn't reach out again for a while. Neither did Laura. I thought maybe that would be it, the final silence. But people don't let go of support systems. Not until they've tried every angle. 3 months after I left, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Just my name, written in Evan's handwriting. Inside, 2 pages. Messy. Smudged. Folded poorly. He called me Michael. Not dad. Not stepdad. Just my name. He said he regretted what happened. He said things had been rough since I left. He said he understood that I felt disrespected. He said, "Maybe we can talk." I read it once, then again, then I burned it. Because regret without ownership is manipulation. Because rough is what happens when the scaffolding falls. Because maybe we can talk is what you say when you still think time will soften the truth. It won't. The truth is, I spent years building a life around people who thought I was optional, who thought I would always say yes, who mistook silence for permission and effort for obligation. I was the one who stayed, the one who showed up, the one who turned his own life inside out to create a future for someone else's child. And when the moment came, when respect was the only thing I asked for, they gave me contempt. So now I give them what they gave me: distance, absence, memory. Evan is probably telling his own story now, one where I'm the villain, the stepfather who bailed, the man who gave up. Let them both. Because here's the truth they won't say aloud. They didn't lose me because I left. They lost me because they never kept me. And now, the quiet speaks louder than I ever did. The last time I saw Evan was 6 months after the message. He was walking out of a bus station downtown. Hoodie up, backpack slung low. No car, no smile. He didn't see me. Or maybe he did and looked away. He looked older, smaller, a little lost. I felt something stir in me. Not pity, not anger, just the echo of someone I used to carry. He passed by, didn't stop. Neither did I. We had become exactly what he asked for. Strangers. And in that final silence, I ask you, was I cruel? Was I wrong to let their choices stand? Or did I simply learn the lesson too late? That a man who is hated, yet expected to keep paying, is not a father. He is an employee. And when the job ends, so does the service. So tell me, would you have stayed? Or would you finally have walked away?